So we've just seen a very uncharacteristic signal fire off. In today's video, I want to break that signal down. We want to have a look at, is this a real signal? Is this a trap that's currently setting up? And are bulls going to continue price higher? Do we have a confirmed low? There's a whole lot that we need to discuss in today's video. Smash the like button. Let's get straight into the show content. Late yesterday afternoon, we started to see prices pick up pretty aggressively. We started to see these massive rises in the 7-day daily exchange volume. And a lot of people believe that it's got something to do with transitioning from QT into QE with the overnight repurchase agreements spiking. And that's what we want to discuss today. Is it real? Can you trust it? What does it mean for Bitcoin and price? Is there an opportunity for a real relief rally over here, a sizable one that will take you up into the 100K region, possibly even $105,000? Or should you be cautious, right? So all the questions that you guys may have, that's what we're going to address today. But before I build the case and shift the bias, at least, let me know what your honest thoughts are with regards to this BTC breakout. Is it the real one, a trap? Is it a real breakout or a trap? So vote, this is a real one. Lows in 27% of you. Looks promising, but you don't trust it. That's 42% of you. I would say this is the most sensible. If you're looking at the real data, that's probably a good vote. We have 15%. I'm very unsure, need more time. Also very sensible. And then as fake as a Kardashian's buttocks, we got 16% of you that voted for that. Maybe you just wanted to click that one because you like the Kardashians, but we'll discuss this and a whole lot more. Right, let's get into it. We have a lot going on over here. One thing that I wanted to cover is I have not re-entered the 75% short trade, or at least the 75% of the profits on the short trade that we took. We still have that on the table in the form of cash. 25% of the short trade is still in the short trade. So we'll see. I'm going to assess what happens over the course of today. Probably need to say I'm very unsure and I need a bit more time for price action to unfold to see if MicroStrategy will get a bigger bounce up over here to set in another low high. I mean, that can bounce as high up as like 250, 260, somewhere around there. And then we can re-enter the profits, the 75% profits back into that short trade. So that's one thing. The other thing I wanted to highlight is the relationship that you're seeing between silver and gold. Silver, of course, continuing higher up over here. Gold is still hanging around somewhere near these lows. So if you were long on silver, we said stop loss over here could be at 48.3. What does that mean for gold? Well, this is kind of the setup that I'm looking at on gold. No guarantee that you're going to make it as far down over here. But from a fractal perspective, if you compare the two of these together, they're following a very, very, very similar path. You got these ascending triangles. Silver already breaking out of those highs and gold slightly lagging, but structurally it's almost exactly the same trade, right? So if, for example, you were to label this, well, you got 1, 1, right? 2, you got 2 down here. Price comes up, doesn't reach as high as the 3 on silver, but nevertheless, that generally is the 3. 4 comes down, 4 comes down, and then expands, right? So 4 comes down and expands. Is this lagging? Well, I think it's a worthwhile trade just based off the ascending triangle anyways. So that's basically what I'm looking at. I'm taking this trade over here. I'm busy scaling into the position, and I'm going to be looking at the long trade first and foremost up to the 1.618. This gives you a 3.77 to 1 risk to reward ratio. And if it reaches the breakout level, which is worked out off of the measured move of that ascending triangle, well, then that raises the bar over here to a 5 to 1 risk to reward ratio, which is absolutely beautiful, but it depends on where you get your entry. So traditional market wise, that is the main thing that I'm looking at. I looked at the stock markets. I'm not going to go through all of that today. Most of it looks fine, all holding above that key mid-level range zone, the box that we had marked out in the previous weeks. Reclaim that, holding above that. As long as it's above that, you should see continuation within the stock market. So if you do want to take this gold trade, by the way, a lot of you keep asking me where you can trade gold, silver, etc. You can trade on BTCC. They're giving you a 10% sign-up deposit bonus. And the most important thing whenever I look at these exchanges is the fees. Because you use the link in the description below, they're going to access 40% off of trading fees for life, right? So if you want to participate in that, just use that link over there, BTCC. There's even a video to show you how to get your sign-up bonus. Moving on to Bitcoin, right? So we're starting to see a really nice move over here. The week's not done, but I guess if you do close the weekly candle like this, it will look promising for a bit of further relief. And then your lower high territories are all going to be situated between that 100 and about $105,000 between the purple and the green line. That is your fib retracement from high to low. And in the short to medium term, those become the targets, right? But you need to wait for that week to close because USDT has the propensity to start to look like a major rejection off of the fourth test of this trend line. Fourth test increases the probability of a breakout. So if you do close below last week's low, which is coming in at 5.883%, that will look good for further downside, which is just going to lead into a high low. That would lead into, so high lows on USDT dominance equals lower highs on Bitcoin, which comes into the the purple to green zone is going to be your major resistance over there. However, the week is not over. That's what I'm saying, right? The week is not over. What if this candle starts to rally up? We early in the week, it's only Wednesday. If this candle begins to rally up and gets left as a big wick behind and closes green, of course, incredibly bearish. A lot of people are going to be super, super hurt in that environment. And a lot of people are trying to front run the transition from QT into QE. Now, you have to look at what happened back in 2019 leading into 2020. They stopped quantitative tightening, meaning that the Fed stopped reducing their balance sheet and started adding to their balance sheet. But there's a gap in between, this like liminal space over there where nothing really happens and you're in no man's territory, and prices can go down in that environment before resetting into QE where you get a big rally up. This whole bull run happened in a very different environment driven by institutions and not too many retail participants. So we saw a big signal flash, but is it trustworthy? That's what I'm going to bring up. This signal will shock you. Stay until the next two, at least, tabs over here, because it is unbelievable if true. If true, that's the key word. If that signal is true, well, you could be setting up for something different in the market. Something big could be coming, and we need to assess that. But what you need to understand is the context. The context is that, transitioning from QT into QE, there could be that gap in space over there, which leads to further downside. So right now we have liquidity building more on the downside with late longs that are chasing price, shorts covering a little bit of a short squeeze over there for any of the shorts that didn't take profit. And maybe they entered late in their shorts, getting squeezed on 12 hours. This is quite a lot of liquidity for a low time frame like the 12 hours, 19 million. It's situated at $91,228. Remember, that becomes a draw for price, right? It's a draw towards that liquidity. Quick look at the 24 hours and then we'll see the weekly. 24 hours mostly wiped. There it is. That was your short squeeze over there coming into this area. That was 25 million. We say anything over 20 million is relatively significant. You tag that level, melted through, and let's see the weekly over there, what that looks like. And then I want to show you that signal that I couldn't believe my eyes when I saw it. So liquidity wiped out on the weekly. Now, what is the signal? If we go into the Whale Trades website and you scroll down to the bottom, what did you just get? You got the biggest ever spike in daily exchange volume, bigger than 2021. Now, this is the big question. This is where I default you back to the poll. Honest thoughts for the BTC price. Is this a real breakout or a trap? Make sure to put your vote in. It all stems around trying to break down whether this is a true signal or not. Very, very, very interesting. One thing I can tell you is there's a few different things that we can look at as confluence to see, is this an outlier? Is this a data error that's come out? Because this is what a lot of people are thinking, right? They're thinking that the overnight repurchase agreement spiked and all that money is flowing into crypto. Is it a glitch? Is it an error? Well, let's go through a couple of things. Firstly, I would expect if this were a real signal, price should follow aggressively with it, which we did get a decent move towards the upside. But when in doubt, zoom out. I mean, price came down, from top to bottom 36%, and now we've bounced the equivalent of 16%. So really, this is nothing out of the ordinary, right? This can even rally from bottom to top, which is what I was saying at the time. 20-30% is on the table, 20 to 30% bounces. So nothing over here is out of the ordinary in relationship to such a massive spike. So that's one point in favor of this being an error with the data, unfortunately, an error with the data. I want to remind you that this is our very own version of our M2 money supply for crypto, right? Everyone looks at the M2 money supply and how price lags the M2 money supply. And basically, if you want to see something more reflexive and sensitive to the crypto markets, when this goes up like it did in 2021, you're in face melting rallies, right? This leg up over here. So you'd expect that you should have face melting rallies. Things should have doubled in price, tripled in price overnight, which is not the case, right? So right now, step number one, we assessed at least what's happening with the price, it's normal. So we have to say probably a data error. Next thing we can look at is long to short ratio. Well, it hasn't skewed massively in favor of the long, saying that people are just like aping into positions over here. And consequently, the skew is only just marginally 2% over there. So that's 2 points in favor of. Unfortunately, that's probably a data error. I say unfortunately because remember, my life is much easier when it's up only. Much easier, right? Everyone's happier. You guys are all in good moods. Money is flowing around. Taking a lot of trades, right? My personal trades, I'll be making a lot more money than in a shorting market. Shorting is very tricky, and you don't get the same types of opportunity. It's not an asymmetrical risk to reward bet, right? It's much easier to make money in up-only markets. So trust me, I'm not the perma bear that you may think that I am. I've been very, very bullish for the full bull run from the start at $16,200 going all in and basically long over $100,000. And then, of course, things start to change, right? So if you're here for the first time, I'm absolutely not a perma bear. I was very bullish for 3 years, and then I go bearish for 1 year because that's the way that the cycles typically work. So we've got two things in favor that's a fake signal, unfortunately. The other thing that we would look at, if this were a real signal, you would have expected like $2 billion worth of liquidations, probably majority coming from the short side. Now, this was a good amount of liquidations, right? Shorts getting liquidated, 418 million of the 490 were shorts. It's a good amount, but it's not congruent with what you would expect to see if this were a real signal on the volume. So that's three things suggesting, unfortunately, it must be a data error. And I'll look into it a bit more because I've only just checked these charts this morning. So far, it looks fake, right? The ETF outflows, slightly positive. On a move like that, you would expect that the ETF outflows would be in agreement with probably a spike as big as this one over here, which actually marked the exact top at 126,000. So we got that over there, right? That's now four things suggesting, unfortunately, we cannot trust that signal over there. The next thing I look at is the aggregate open interest. Well, if it were real, I would expect that somebody caught wind of some massive news and the open interest would have just gone absolutely ballistic to the moon over here, to all-time highs. The same as what the daily exchange volume is suggesting. And therefore, unfortunately, I can't really trust that signal and that move, right? That would be absolutely massive. Unfortunately, I'm not logged in. I'm not going to log in here. I'll have to dox all my details. But I did have a look as well at the funding rates, and they still remain slightly negative. So you would have seen a massive, with the open interest rising, a massive spike up in the funding rate on the weekly time frame. And then the biggest and most important and easiest thing in the whole world to look at is just the price chart, right? This is looking at Coinbase, but you can go through the list. You can look at Binance, OKX, whatever, all the different exchanges. And what you'll see over here is, again, the volume, unfortunately, is not in agreement with this daily exchange volume. So we have to take that as possibly a data error, unfortunately, a bit of a data error. So that's what we're looking at. Now, the trends are still down. If you're confused about that, remember, all you have to do is position your chart onto a line chart and ask yourself, is it lower lows and lower highs? It's as easy as counting to 3. 1, 2, 3. Lower lows and lower highs. If you can't get that part right, I don't know. You're in my thoughts and prayers. That's all that I can say. So lower lows and lower highs is the name of the game over here. And that is exactly what we're seeing. High, lower low, lower high, lower low, lower high, lower low. Fill in the missing blanks, right? So you're coming directly into resistance over here. Now, if, however, this begins to break through and you get a rise in volume, beautiful, absolutely beautiful. Now we're going to be cooking, right? But the most important thing that I'm trying to focus on over here is the volume, because we've always been looking at this for quite a long period of time. And this spike is completely out of the ordinary, but you don't have the support. I would say this is the most important thing to have confirmation or support to suggest that that is real. And the volume is dropping as price is rising directly into exact resistance, tagging the 50% level right now and starting to come down. And not only that, but you have the downsloping trend line, which I'll make stand out like a sore thumb in red, so you can't miss it. And there it is, right? So I think if you can start to break and clear some of that, there is a bit of hope. The only really interesting thing going on right now for the bulls is this, right? Of course, you have the major low, and right now on a closing basis, you've printed a high low. But that's not a trend reversal. That's just a little bit of a change of character that's going on in the market. It's not a full-on break of structure, trend reversal. Break of structure, trend reversal. This is your last lower high. So first you need to spike through that. Still nothing's changed, right? At that point, yes, now you come down, put in your next high low like this. Low, high, low, high, low, and now you have a break over here. You can say, okay, now things have shifted. But unfortunately, that hasn't happened. Unfortunately, that's not the case. So you need to be very cautious over here with long trades if you happen to be long on the market, right? Let me quickly double check in Whale Room what our current positioning is. Let me just find the Discord 1 second so I can let you know. So current positioning that we have on the table, Zcash, short trade, bank the profits over there. We basically ran that thing full. We have MicroStrategy short trade covered 75% of the trade. Stops were moved to break even on the remaining 25%. And we deciding, are we going to reallocate that back into the market? Syrup short trade, we're still there in that short trade. I'll review those just now. World Liberty Finance short trade stops to break even. So on both of those, no chance of losing. But even despite this little bit of a move up, nothing has come back to even break even over there. So all is good over there. Long on gold, looking for the long, building the long, still coming into the area of interest. And then Monero long, if it does come into the area of interest. So just sharing a bit of alpha with you guys from Whale Room. That is basically the current positioning that we're looking at over there. Moving on. Okay, so you cleared the middle Bollinger Band. At least that's one good sign. Volatility is starting to expand once again on the daily time frame, but you have to go in alignment with the trend, which unfortunately is still towards the downside. Pretty much until you clear this high over here, it's still going towards the downside. The one change that you have, of course, is what I just mentioned with that bit of a higher low that's forming. So you need the bulls to do a bit more work. You still bobbing and weaving around the apex of this triangle for ETH-BTC, which is pretty interesting over there. And then the last thing I want to look at before going into maybe a few altcoin requests is I just want to quickly see what is going on with the momentum oscillators. And I'll probably start on the daily just to see, okay, daily turning back up, getting a green dot. That depends on if today closes like this, then you're going to get that green dot. There's a chance for some continuation. 12 hourly VWAP curling back up, money flow not positive yet, but on its way up. 8 hour got the green dot, 4 hour still rising, hourly getting a red dot, so maybe a bit of a rejection off that 50% level and pullback, which you can see if it comes into high lows. The hourly red dot, 30-minute red dot, 15-minute. This is for the people that are watching live, I guess. 5 minutes also starting to try and curl back up. So that's what we're looking at over there. I do also still have a small long trade open on Ethereum, so holding on to that for now, but we'll review that chart as well in a moment. MicroStrategy short trade in massive profits over there as well, and that is on Pinex. So if any of you want to trade on Pinex, by the way, they also have the metals on here, so you can have a look at that. And they have synthetic stocks, right? Tokenized stocks. If you go over here, you can see over there, you got a whole bunch of tokenized stocks. Tesla, Nvidia, Google, MicroStrategy, the NASDAQ, Apple, you got Palantir, you got Circle. Wouldn't take any trades over there though. Bitmine, so some of the miners, Bitcoin miners, S&P 500 is over there. Meta, I don't know what this is. Iron Limited, Coinbase, Amazon. So you got the Magnificent Seven. CoreWeave trades like crazy. This thing has huge volatility. Oklo, SanDisk. This thing was in a massive bull run, right? SanDisk was going ballistic. I remember we compared that to Arweave. This is the real world file storage, and it was doing super well. So anyway, I'm not going to go through the whole list, but all of that is there for you guys. Okay, let's go. What else have we got? So important things to look at. Let's check out what is happening in the world of crypto blue chips. So here is essentially ETH USD. So I'm going to continue to keep that long on the table for ETH. It's a very small long. It's not massive, but we're scaling into that position. Theoretically, still coming into resistance over here. This is still a downtrend as well until proven otherwise. But a little bit of a bit more optimistic case that you put in, also a possible high low. But it's the same thing as Bitcoin, right? You have to clear pretty much all the way like 3,674 to shift any of those trends. So we'll go on to some of the other short trades that we had. Let's look at Monero. So Monero, worthwhile to start to scale into a long trade over here if you believe that price is going to go up. You have quite a wide range. The stop loss would be under 320, and the reason for this is cup and handle on a high time frame, which says that Monero could run as high up as about $740 over there. So your safer entry, I should say, is this clearance of that, get above the pink box over here, and then you can find some sort of a trigger plan. But any pullback around 50% of that level. So you want to retrace about 50% of this trading range, and that will take you to the purple zone, 377. You can start to look for longs at that midpoint over there. Zcash pretty much played out that short trade 100% in full. It's still in a downtrend, though. However, it is still in a downtrend, despite this little bit of an upside move that you've had. Look at that hourly move that you had towards the upside. Big move up, comes back down, currently putting in possibly another lower high. So, yeah, I'm not going to go long on this, on Zcash just yet. I don't dispute that there's a chance that it does something like this, and this is what I drew out yesterday. You know, some sort of a move like this, bobs and weaves, shops about, rallies eventually back up to 550, and that's going to be your massive complacency bounce and lower high. And then ultimately, I think this reverts, you know, all the way back down, full retrace, back down to about 49 over there on Zcash. So there's giving you a bit of a high time frame overview. So no changes there for me personally. Of course, if the trends begin to shift back up, I'm going to close the rest of the short position over there. Syrup, so still in the money despite the spike up over here. Nothing got taken out of that trade. It came extremely close. Stops are moved to break even, and that's it. Holding that position. World Liberty Finance still holding the short position as well. Nothing is stopped out over there. Everything is fine. No changes needed. Let me just double check our Discord list again. Was there anything else? World Liberty Finance short, Syrup short, I've updated on. MicroStrategy updated on. Zcash you updated on. Gold, I gave you the trade setup. Monero, I said pull back into the 50% level, and there's a long opportunity over there. So essentially what I'm saying over here, very difficult to trust any of these pumps until you get a rise in the volume and a break of this downtrend. You're still in a downtrend. It is what it is. You know, wave 1, 2, 3, 4. I mean, maybe you're going to go in for new lows when you do a quick Elliott wave analysis, which I'm not an Elliott waver, but wave 1, wave 2, wave 3, wave 4. What if it's coming down one more time for wave 5, right? It is what it is. Seek out the Elliott wave experts out there, but I'm just looking at the trend, which is down. Alrighty, cool. Let me check out your chat. HBAR bot. You say HBAR bot open maybe. Very good English. But let me have a look. Okay, let's have a look at HBAR, because I feel like we were setting up maybe for a short trade on HBAR. It might be. Let me check if my memory serves us correct. So that's on Hedra. It hasn't come into the zone yet. Yes, so I am correct in that. We were planning a short trade on Hedra, but it needs to spike up a bit higher. It's not quite ready. I will let you know if it activates. So just like this, we're looking for Hedra to spike up to about 1690, and then that becomes a short trade opportunity, in my opinion. You also have quite a long downtrend. If this breaks, of course, you can bail out of that plan, but there it is. There's your downtrend. Any spike that comes up into this zone, so you can add this onto your watch list over there. Anything that comes into this zone there between 1692 and up to about 1857, that's a great short area for HBAR, Hedra hash graph, whatever the hell that is. Okay, cool. So guys, remember, we looked through a lot of different altcoins yesterday. It was very bearish. We did the same exercise on Friday and Saturday, and it was still very bearish. Nothing really changes, right? Nothing changes just because you got a little bit of an upside move, right? It's relief rallies following the biggest down days can be recorded as the biggest daily rallies, but it's still just lower highs. We haven't broken anything. USDT on the trend line. We can have a look at USDT dominance again, just very quickly. So look, this is a key resistance, but the thing is, from a probabilistic standpoint, test 1, 2, 3, 4. We know the fourth time has a high probability of breaking out. It's not a guarantee. It's just like, if I had to pin down a probability, what's the chances this is going to break through? It's usually in the region of like 70%, at least 70% chance. That's not a 100% chance. That means there's a 30% chance it will pull back, and maybe it will find support over here. And then you come in for the fifth time. Now it's like 90% chance on the fifth attempt that you're going to break through. So it's just a question, in my opinion, of are you delaying that by a little bit? Are you going to come down and delay that? Full bull insane mode, shift the whole thing and flip it on its head is this. Of course, if you do something like that. But yeah, I think it's a lot of wishful thinking. You need to look for trades in both directions. So that's part of hedging, right? A couple of short trades on, Zcash short, MicroStrategy short, massive in the money, full TPs already came into the level. Now we're just getting greedy. Do we get more downside on that? Those are two, right? But then on the alternative side, we're looking for Monero long and a gold long if it permits the trade entry. And then we have Syrup and World Liberty Finance short trades, which are also in the money. Stops are to break even. You just can't lose on the trade. So that's what it's about, right? When you're at each extremity, you're looking for both the long and the short trade on either side. And then when the chart moves in favor, you can eliminate risk, take some profits, and then you have both longs and shorts. Like whatever happens, happens. Let the market decide. We don't control the market, right? This is what trading is about. It's reactive. You need to react to what the market is giving you. And you always want to react at the extremities. Why? Because that's the closest to the invalidation, which means you can minimize your risk. That's what you're trying to do, right? You want to minimize your risk as close as possible to the extremities. Okay, cool. Alrighty. Let's see. What else? Checking your chat, guys. Everyone go and vote on the poll. If you didn't already vote, I would love to see more of those votes and comments. And then if you do appreciate the content and you get value, do smash the like button over there. It really, really helps. So let's quickly see reset on the votes. We got 1,360 of you and about almost 2K of you live. So 700 of you haven't voted. Go and vote over there. Everybody put your vote in. I'd love to see if this shifts. So look, looks promising, but don't trust it. This is kind of the mindset that I'm in, between that and very unsure whether you're going to get relief. The case for relief would be, yes, you've printed a little bit of a high low on the daily, but the case for looks promising is, yeah, it looks promising. You put in a high low, but don't trust it because there's no volume. We can't trust that, unfortunately. We need to see if this is going to be reset from the block. The data's pulled from the block, and it looks the same on their side. So we need to see, is that going to shift over there? What else do I want to say? There was something else important I wanted to say about that. Okay. I had something I wanted to tell you guys, but now I've forgotten about that. Let's see. Okay, cool. So if I remember, I'll update you. Alrighty. Okay, sell before the bull moon fades. Tom Lee said new all-time high by January. Yeah, Tom Lee also said, I think 12K Bitcoin, or 12K, excuse me, Ethereum by the end of December. So he clearly holds a lot of Ethereum. So he needs to cope with that, right? And I see that it's the psychology as well of certain people in the chat. You can see when they are very, very overexposed and they're trying to cope. It's, yeah, not a great place to be in. But look, I still maintain what I've said. Bitcoin could print out a right shoulder with a head and shoulders pattern. Left shoulder, head came in at $126,000. Right shoulder will probably come in between about $100,000 and $105,000. So in my opinion, anyone that is caught in underwater long positions, your best bet is to, as long as you're not on leverage, you can sit through the volatility on spot, and then you can wait for example, the 105K level to potentially exit somewhere around there if you are stuck in positions. Okay. Alrighty. We can look at 𝗬𝗓. I see there's a question around 𝗬𝗓 over there, so we can check it out quickly. 𝗬𝗓 got a nice spike up over here. Now it's coming into the sell zone, right? This is the area that I was looking at previously for 𝗬𝗓. Downtrend, straight downtrend, just like the rest of them. Measuring from the high to the low. Let's just double check we got it pinpointed perfect. Yes, we do. So this is theoretically the zone where you'd expect, if there is going to be a lower high, it should occur within this region over here. That is where you're going to get that lower high. If it is going to happen, right? You'd expect price to come down. At the end of the day, enormous inefficiencies. Remember this, the market doesn't like these massive inefficient candles. Maybe some people call these things manipulation, like you have manipulation to the downside, manipulation to the upside, it's all over. But really all that this is it's just such an illiquid market. Very, very, very illiquid market, which means that, if there is a player with some sizable cash, some sizable money, they can throw price around in both directions. And this makes the emotions go absolutely wild. And that's why we look at certain things like that, like the volume, because if it were real moves, we'd expect it to be backed by that volume. Okay, so that is the situation. That is the situation that we're looking at. So we're shorting SUI. You can. Yeah, if you look for weakness, look, I don't want too many trades on the table, but theoretically, you can short it if you start to see weakness within the zone over here. This is your rejective zone, right? Keeping it very simple, this was your last lower high, which means that anything that occurs underneath that should be the next lower high. So if you're kind of pyramiding into a short trade, it would look something like that. But it's quite volatile, quite wild move. So you need to see it like kind of roll over. I would never buy into weakness. I'd also never short directly into strong strength, because for all you know, it just squeezes higher like that. The difference between shorting a 175 and 215 is massive. You could lose all your money between those two, 20%, right? It's 20%. That's why you need to wait for it to actually turn over if you are going to short it. Alternatively, if you can break above all of this, that would start to look like the deviation. So bullish would be huge move up, and then you still need a throw back into that anyway, which is only going to come in like sometime in December. Okay. So therefore, those are the main things that I'm looking at for price. I'll keep a close eye out in the USDT dominance. It's going to be yet again another vitally important week. Let's quickly go to the data hub over here and just see what's going on let's actually see a few things. Firstly, let's have a look at the flows on the weekly. These flows are so weird. They don't even make any sense to me. I must be honest. Like the coins that the capital flows into right now in the hourly is like things like Aster. Okay, we have still the largest whale position on Hyperliquid is short actually on Bitcoin right now. Other things I wanted to check is the data for high impact data. Let's just see what's coming out. So December the 3rd, there is ADP, National Employment, S&P 500, PMI, okay, PMI data, ISM data coming out, jobless claims tomorrow. So there is some data that's coming out as well. Alrighty. Yes, great alpha. Smash the like button. Thank you, BMB228. Appreciate you. That's the easiest way to help out, guys, is if you just smash the like button. It really is of value to us because it helps to get the show out. And that's why we do these shows, is to bring it to more people, to try and add value to your lives. So remember, you can also use the Whale Trade site completely for free. The link is in the description below. If you guys want that, just go through to Whale Trades over there if you want to get access to this data. And then you can just check later on today to see maybe they'll reset this. I'll investigate this a little bit further for you guys, and we'll see tomorrow what happens over there. Other than that, that is it from me. Thank you guys so much for joining. I appreciate each and every single one of you sticking here through the tough times. We'll catch up soon, and cheers for now.